Morning guys. Okay, here's an update on our stripping and antique finishing of an 1860 coat. Now what you're seeing here is where I have stripped the finish with the vinegar trick that you saw earlier. Okay, now let's look a little closely at what's been left. As you can see here, it's left a few little dots here and there of the blued finish it had. And if you look closely at the loading lever, you can see like a shadow of what was once case hardening in a couple other little places. And as stated, the case hardening simply evaporated as soon as you put it in there. Now, you could at this point, if this is all you want to do, strip the finish to this point. You neutralized it with baking soda water, clean it up, you could oil it up and start shooting it. Okay, and what that's going to do is that will patina it, because the metal will begin to rust. Shooting it, getting the salts on it, you wipe it off really good, you keep it down, and as you fight that battle of it trying to rust and you wiping it down back and forth, it will build up the patina that we're going for and create it. And really that's the most honest way to do it. Now it's the slowest way to do it, because if I do it that way, it may take, I don't know, a month or so of shooting and wiping it off, because it will just keep wanting to rust until it builds up that patina. And what that patina is red oxide, which is where the metal is actually breaking down and trying to turn back into iron ore out of steel. It turns from red to black oxide. Black oxide, or that dark brown, is dead. It's not decaying anymore. It's kind of, think of it like a scab on us after we've bled. And that's what causes that patina, that color, to get into it. So you can do it that way. How would I suggest you do it? You'd shoot the gun, clean the gun as normal, but don't oil the outside of it. Let it rust. Check it every couple hours. Definitely check it overnight. But oil the bore, oil the inside, oil or lubricate, I should say. I use bore butter. Lubricate the bore, lubricate the chambers, and any important areas that are functioning areas. We don't want to glue this shut. You want to make sure everything moves. And then as that patina or rust pops up, which is just surface rust, take like an old sock and sit there and buff it. Well, you're what's called carding. You're removing that, but leaving the patina. Okay? And in a relatively short order, you will get it. When it gets to exactly like you want, then you're going to take and coat it down real heavily, let it soak and completely kill it so it's no longer rusting. That's that idea. But we're going to go further with this. But right now, today, what we're going to deal with is the grip. Now, I haven't done anything to the grip at this point, as you can see. It fits really well. It is just a shade proud right there. But once I get the finish off, I'll address that with just a simple sand right quick, and that'll be dead smooth. Very well fitted. Now, what am I going to use for this? I am going to attempt to use the Easy Off oven cleaner that I mentioned for God knows how many years. In the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, that's what I always used to strip to finish on stocks. But I had been informed by people that they changed the formula a few years ago. It used to be lye, like the stuff you cleaned out drains with, but they changed the law and it's not lye anymore. So we're going to try this. If it doesn't work, and I'm going to fail on camera if it does, I'll take and shift over to an off-the-shelf stripping agent like you buy in hardware for stripping paint. But I've always used Easy Off, so let's see if that works. So I'm going to run inside, I'm going to take off the grips right quick, I'm going to twist it up in a wire coat hanger to be able to hold it and manipulate it, and then we're going to spray it down. We're going to see what happens. If it does what I'm expecting, it should strip all this finish off of it in like 30 minutes. If it doesn't, then we'll go to the next step. But I'll be right back. Okay, now I've got my Easy Off oven cleaner. I've got a wire coat hanger that what I've done is simply, there's the hook, stretched it out. I'm going to take my grip and I'm going to put the wire around it like that and squeeze it together. Give a little twist so it's something that cannot easily fall off of this. You know, just a little pinch here and there. Slide it in, see that? Not going to come off. And yet I can manipulate it easily. I got a hook I can hang it up once I spray it. Now with the Scotch-Brite pad, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over the finish, the factory finish first, and just kind of lightly sand it. This gives the cleaning material, the stripping material, an opportunity to get in up underneath that finish easier. Being sure not to knock off any of the corners or anything here. But just don't take long to scratch it up a little bit. And I recommend you use something like a Scotch-Brite pad or real light sandpaper. I'm not after to really do anything other than scratch it up and give an avenue for the spray to get up underneath. And it'll take just a second. Okay, now that's been done, now we're going to spray it down. And this is Easy Off Heavy Duty Oven Cleaner. We're about to see. Now, why did I start using this originally? Well, back in the 80s when surplus guns were cheap, you could pick up a Mosin Nagant 44s running like $65 or $70 from Navy Arms, and they were just starting to come in, and you could pick them up really cheap. But the problem with many of those military guns was they had a oil finish on the stock, and that finish, you'd go to strip it and then turn around and try to refinish it, and the oil would actually weep out of the gun stock. And what that was is the guns were originally, basically the stocks were put in kind of like a pressure cooker and put under pressure. Make sure you cover all surfaces. They would go and put it, I'll just hang it up a minute. They'd put it in a pressure cooker and allow the oil to be pushed into the wood. Well, this was great for military applications. But now in modern times, here I am, I'm wanting to refinish this gun. And I would sand it and make it pretty, and oil would weep out of it. It was linseed oil. And ruin your finish. And so on one of the discussions I had with someone about military surplus, an old gunsmith told me that he used Easy Off Oven Cleaner. That by spraying it down with it, it would actually kind of wick the oil out. And he could refinish a gun stock. The first, strip the old finish, put the filler onto it, put the color onto it, let that dry, buff it out, and put at least 2 layers of linseed oil on it in one night, as opposed to 2 weeks to get a stock refinished. And so I started doing that method, and it worked beautifully. I could strip the oil right out of the stock and do it and be done with it in relatively short order. So I wouldn't be doing this on my grips and things like that. Now, this is going to be allowed to work for, say, 30 minutes. Now, if this does its job, and I'll come back to you then, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a paper towel, wear a pair of gloves in, I'm going to wipe it all off, take a Scotch-Brite pad, hit any place left, maybe do this coating again until all the finish is off that stock, where I can then proceed to drying it and refinishing it. We shall see. Alright, I'll be back with you in about 30 minutes. Okay, now while the wooden grips are working on their part of it, let's go on to the next step. And the next step is the trigger guard. Now this is a bronze brass alloy, and what I've done to this point is I've taken fine sandpaper and sanded it down to get rid of the shine. I want it into a satin patina. Okay, now I'm going to take a little spacer, I'm going to take my closed container. I'm going to open it up. I'm going to set the spacer in. I'm going to set my trigger guard down on top of it. I want it sat in this configuration because I don't want any of these surfaces touching anything, because that part's going to show. The inside I don't care about. Okay. Now I'm going to pour into here a shallow layer of vinegar. Just cover the bottom good. And after I do that, then I'm going to sprinkle in about a tablespoon of regular old table salt. Now, the two of these combined are going to produce a gas. Thus, I'm going to then seal this up and let it work. For the next, say, 2 hours, I'm going to let it work. And then, in 2 hours, I'll check it. I'll open it up. I'll take a look at it. If it's where I want, great, I stop. I'm going to wipe it down. The object of the game here is create a patina on the brass. Well, this stuff has to, these gases adhere to and begin to penetrate and therefore tarnish the brass inside of the trigger guard. It will develop a coating, kind of like a bearded grease. I want to card that off. I'm going to take a paper towel and just wipe it off real good and put it back in. This will make it uneven and look like something, because I'm not going to get in all the nooks and crannies. I'm just going to wipe it off. So in them corners and things like that, in these corners up next to the trigger guard and up here in the front and back here behind trigger, I'm not going to wipe those off. Let them get darker, because that's how in real life it would be, right? So I'm going to just sit the trigger guard in there, do that, and let this happen. This is going to be a slow process. After, say, 2 hours or so, I'll dump out that vinegar and repeat the process. I will wipe off what I don't like until it gets to be the depth I do want. This is a slow process. It may take overnight. It may take 2 days to reach what I want. I'm in no hurry. I've got the gun apart, I've got the grips working, and I've got this working. So I'm moving along the assembly line. But that's how we're going to tarnish the trigger guard. Okay? Let me go set it up, and then we'll go check on the grips in a minute. Okay, after 30 minutes, ain't happening. I coated it down heavy, let it hang out in the air. After scotch sprouting it, didn't touch it. So, my earlier statement of using easy off ain't working, guys. We're going to have to go to a commercial stripper. And I hate that. That worked so well for so many years. But hey, times change. Blackie didn't know the difference in that. Didn't know they'd changed the formula. Because, nah. The old stuff like I used to have, spray it on there in 5 minutes, that would have been gone. By this point, I would have wiped it off and it had been bare wood like it had never been stained. No. Okay. But that's okay. We can fail. Now what we do is I get the actual stripper and I come back and do that. That will be tomorrow. I will post one. I'll get up to Saturday morning and we'll try this again. And we're going to get this done. But yeah, failure. Hope you enjoyed this, guys. Hope we learned something. We both learned something together today. Till tomorrow, I'm wishing you safe journeys. Have a great day, guy. Time to get busy.